Another helpful tool in After Effects is the brush tool. With this tool, you get to create frame-by-frame animations, or maybe add some cool neon lines to your current video. So in this lesson, we're going to see how it works, and in the further tutorials, we're going to see how we could add those really cool line animations that you see are placed on top of dancing videos. I'll show a clip to show you what I mean. But for now, let's understand the brush tool and see how it works. Let's make a new composition. And then we are going to import videos, or you could just add a solid. So if you want to make a solid, hold down Control and Y. Or if you're on Mac, Command Y. Choose a color. Let's go for white. And there's our solid. And then we're going to get our brush tool, but notice that even though I'm on the brush tool, I cannot draw anything. You can see I can't really do anything, and my cursor is not different. So to access any of these three tools, you need to be on the layer of that footage that you have. So right now I'm on the composition, but if I double click on this layer, you can see I'm now in the actual layer. So when you're in here, you're just working with the overall look of the layer within that composition. But when you go into the layer itself, you're working with a more detailed perspective, and you get to add things that you can't add in the composition. So that includes using the brush tool, the clone tool, and the erase tool. So now that I'm in the layer white solid 1, I'm going to get my brush, hold down Control B if you want to get it with a shortcut. And now you can see that my cursor is different. And you also saw that I got these two extra panels before this was there, effects and presets. I'm actually going to close this. The panels that we're going to need for this lesson are the paint panel, the brushes panel, and this is optional, but you can also get the align panel. If you're not seeing any of these, by default, when you click on the brush tool, these should appear on their own. But if you're not seeing them, just go to Window, turn on Brushes, and Paint, which is down here. Oh wait, it's up here. And Paint. So, in the Brushes panel, you would need to first adjust the size of your brush. Right now, you can see nothing is visible, so I'm going to make one singular stroke. Delete that. I'm going to go to Paint, and I'm going to click on this guy and then change the opacity. So the opacity is how visible your brush is. So if it's at let's say 23%, you can see it's barely there. If it's at 100, you can see it's fully visible. And the flow is the intensity of the stroke. So if it's a low number, you can see that it's really light. Usually when you're dealing with blending or just painting in general, you would be working with the flow quite a lot. And if the flow is at 100, then it's just your regular brush. So you would adjust these. Next to that, we have the tip of our brush, or the size of it. Right now it's 13. We open this, you get to change the color. You can choose any color you want. And if you're working with two colors at the same time, you can switch this and then change your second color. So you can alternate between the two when you're drawing. So now I get to have this purple pink color. If I switch that, I have this blue color. If you hit X on your keyboard, you're switching between the two colors. And then we have the eyedropper tool. So if you have an image and you want to get that specific color, you would get this guy and then go over that color to get it. You can see I sampled the light blue, and now I have another color. And if you want to switch back to black and white, just hit this guy, and now it's black and white. Then down here we have some blending modes, which we will get into later. It's not that important for this lesson. We have the channels. These are also things that we will get into other lessons. But one thing that I did want to mention is the duration. So the duration of your brush is basically how long will that brush stroke last. So if right now it's on constant, so if I go forward in time, you can see it's still there. But if I want to do a frame by frame animation, I would have to put it on single frame. And it's still there, so I need to delete all of these guys. Let me just delete all of these brushes. If you open the white solid layer and then open effects, go to paint, you get to select all of your brushes. Hold shift to select all of them. You can see they're outlined, and then hit backspace once to remove them. Or you can hold down Control or Command and press C to undo your actions. And remember that the eraser tool, if you don't put the right setting, it's going to erase the white solid too. Now if I go back to the brush tool, I'm still on the layer panel and go to single frame. Now if I add something and then move in one frame, I'm moving one frame at a time by holding down Control and then using my left and right arrow keys. That's Command right or left arrow key. And this is my first frame. I hold down Control right arrow key, and you can see that it disappears. Then I can add another shape. Control right arrow key, another shape, Control arrow key, even more shapes. So if I play this back, hit backspace, went by really quickly because we're moving frames by frames. You can see I'm adding a bunch of shapes, and they're each placed on a single frame because we have set it to single frame. You can also customize this, so you can move it up for maybe 5 frames. Let me grab and delete all of these guys. So if I want one of my paint layers to last for maybe 5 frames, and remember our project is set to 24 frames per second, or actually 30 frames per second. So to make 1 single second of motion, I need 30 frames of media. So I'm going to go back to align. So if I want something to last for 30 frames, let me make this smaller. Find 30 frames. You can see here it's 15. Once it reaches 30, it becomes 1 second. You can see 1 second. So if I wanted to last this long, I would have to set this to 30. So whatever I draw is going to last for 30 seconds. 30 frames, sorry. So I will draw something like this. And now you can see it expanded as long as 30 frames. So you get to customize it. Let's say if I were going to draw a smiley face, I'm going to draw the eye, the other eye, and I want these 2 eyes to last for 30 frames. Then I'll come in here at around 15 frames. I'm going to make this like 15 because I want it to be there for the second half. And then I'll draw like a smiley face. You can see it's here. I'm going to go up here and then change this to 15 frames as well, but make it like a poker face. So if I play this back, you can see the smiley is just, the eyes are just normal, and then it smiles. So you can really use this duration custom option. It's really helpful for single frame animations. Let me delete these. Delete all these layers. Alright, so let's go back to the constant thing. And right on is actually cool as well. Let me do something like this. So basically, this will follow the stroke of whatever I draw. And let me make something better. Expand my timeline. That's right. Although you would have to do it in 1 single stroke, so I cannot write hello like this. I need to do it in a single stroke, which I'm not really good at cursive, but let's see what we could do. Can put the I there. So now if I play this back, you can see it's following my stroke, and I am writing hi in an almost cursive way. All right, and you can see the keyframes down here. We open brush 1, and then we have stroke options. You can see the start is at 0% because it's starting from the beginning, and the end is set to this duration. So there's also another helpful thing. Let me delete this and look at the other things that we have. So I'm going to add a media to my project panel. So just open this, go to project, and I'm going to double click to import something. Let's import, say, this image that we have. This video. I'm going to drag my video on top of my white solid one. And then I'm going to go to my selection tool and kind of scale this back to the original size. Zoom in. All right. So this also applies for videos or any other media. So if it's an image, if it's a video, you get to add this brush stroke to it. I'm going to double click. Let me first close this. Double click on my video layer. And now I'm in it. Get the brush. And now, because I'm on a video, you can see I have options for brushes. So I can choose the roundness. These are just some presets. So if you look at my brush tip, you can see they're different. These are some presets if you want to quickly get a brush. Then down here, you get to make your own style. This is the diameter, the size of your brush. So if you expand it, it will be bigger. Make it smaller, it becomes smaller. We also have angle, which does not apply for brush tips like this because it's a circle. But if you were choosing one of these guys, go in here and make it bigger so we can see. If I change the angle, right now it's like this. If I make it another angle, you can see it's turning. Then we have the roundness, which is the, we're kind of squishing the circle in to make this line. If I expand it all the way, it becomes a circle again. If I remove it, it's just a straight line. Then we have the hardness. Right now you can see the edges of my brush is faded out. This is a soft brush, but if you want a hard brush, you would have to turn this to 100. And you can see that the edges are sharp, unlike the first brush. If you remove it, you're going to have a soft brush. Then we have spacing. This is the distance between these brush marks, which I guess we could try it with something else. Let me choose a bright color because we have a dark video. And this controls the space between the two. We undo that. So if I make the space, I add to the space, you can see the tip is separating. And if I remove it completely, it's just going to be one singular line. All right. So that was the spacing. Let's go back to the default, which was like 27. And then we can save current settings as a new brush preset to put it in here. So I'm going to make one with a hard round brush. Just make it a little bigger so we can see it on the video. Guess this will do. Gonna leave the roundness like this. And I'm gonna hit this to make a new brush. Let's call it default brush. Hit OK. And now I have 181 default brush. Alright, then we have brush dynamics. These would often be used for maybe if you're drawing something or you're painting in a section of your video. But we're just going to quickly go over them. And you could delete the brush if you don't want it, by the way. Just hit this. So in the brush dynamics, we have the size. Currently, it's on pen pressure. So the pressure that you add on this as you draw is going to determine the size. So if I stay on that area for too long, it's going to be a big brush. But just do a single click. You can see it's really light. But that would usually work with a soft round brush. And let me set this to constant. So you can see if I go like this, it's different from when I do this. So when I'm doing this, I'm adding pen pressure. You can see the difference between these two. This guy is a lot more intense and the edges are a lot more visible. But the one where we barely added any pressure, it's going to be really light like this. And then we have a minimum size. You can add that. So it adds to the pressure. You can see the difference between this guy and that guy. You hit Control Z. And we have a lot of paint strokes right now because we were on right on. So I'm going to delete all of these. Go back, hit M to close that. And then down here we have the angle. Again, the dynamic control for the angle would be useful if you're having one of these guys. But with a circle brush, it's not going to be that helpful. The roundness, you can also determine it by the pen pressure. So you can see that it's like fading out around here. And then we have the opacity, which you could also change to pen pressure, which with a mouse, it's not going to be that helpful if you're actually having a pen to draw on your surface, like maybe a tablet or anything. These would be helpful. And then we have the flow, which we talked about it here. It's the same thing, but for the dynamics where you're working with an actual brush. But for now, I'm just going to turn these off, all of them. Then I'll delete all of the brushes that I just made. Come down here, open this up. You have 25 brush strokes. And if you wanted to delete any of them, you could just go on the number. You can see it gets highlighted. Then you would hit backspace to delete that. Just gonna delete all these layers. And then close this off. Alright, so for a video like this, you could do the frame by frame animation. So go to single frame. And then you're going to adjust the size of your brush. Let me make it small. I'm going to zoom in using my scroll wheel. Hit edge to move up towards the area where you want to animate. And maybe we should kind of make an outline from the scarf. Let's try that. So on that layer, use the hand tool to move to the right place. You can also expand your composition window. Just move it to the side like that. And then I'm going to go on my brush, adjust the size. This is still too big. I'm going to go with like 21 pixels. Choose my color, white will do, and then I'm just going to lightly outline her scarf. Now, because this is single frame, you want to make sure you're doing a single stroke. All right, and then I'm going to hold down Control or Command on Mac and hit the right arrow key to move to my next frame. So this was the first frame, this is the second one. And I'm going to kind of expand that halo that we drew. And not going to be too precise. Oops. If you spend time on it, if you have a pen with you to work on your laptop, then that is going to be really helpful if you want to make precise strokes. Especially if you're trying to accurately outline your subject or maybe add a few complementary objects within your animation. I'm going to keep moving until I reach the edge of my composition. So I'm just going around. Next frame, let me zoom out. See my previous frame. Okay. Then I'm just going to go make some random strokes at this point. This is the last one. All right. Now, if we play this back, let me hit fit. If we play this back, you can see that I have these random strokes. which looks pretty nice. But again, if it's more detailed, it's going to look better. So this is what I was talking about in the beginning of this lesson. You've probably seen these dance videos where the person is dancing and there's these brush strokes next to them. This is how you create them. Obviously, you would have to add some effects, maybe some neon effect, and we're going to get into those in another lesson. But for now, this is how the animation works. I'm going to open the paint option and just delete my brushes. Alright, so down here we also have the paint option. So let me draw something else. Let me change this to constant first. Draw a circle here. Do another one. Okay. So if I open my effects panel, I have this option for paint. So right now paint on transparent is turned off, because I don't have anything transparent right now. But if you go in brushes, first of all, you have the option for the blending mode. And if you open brush 1, which is the stroke for the sky, and each stroke that you do is going to have its own brush layer. We can change the path of our brush. So I'm going to make it like this. And then in a few more seconds, I'm going to do like a heart. So basically it's going to be a circle. It's going to render first. It's a circle, then it turns into a heart. Now I'm going to let it render for you guys so we can see it better. Let me go back to the composition and then just cut my clip to this much. Let it render so you guys can see. So you guys can see it's a circle and it turns into a heart. This is another cool thing with the brush animation. Let's go back to the layer. So this was the path. Let me turn that off. We have some stroke options. If you open that up, let me open up my timeline. We have the stroke options for the start and the end. This is related to the right on that we had. But let me see where it is. Okay. So if I add a start, it's going to start from some point and then end at another point. I'll drag my brush here, go to the beginning, turn it on at 0%, finish it off at 100%. So it's like, you can see it's like undoing itself. Pretty nice. Let's see it rendered. So I'm going to render it for you guys. You can see it's like undoing the stroke on its own. Now, the difference between start and end is that this is where we first started. So it's starting from the point that we drew, and the end is starting from the last point that we drew. That's the difference. So if you're typing something or writing something, let me delete this. I'm gonna delete brush 1. Make another thing like okay, on brush and draw something that would have a start and finish. So let's do the cursive, somehow cursive high without the thing. And then we're going to open brush 1, come down to stroke options. Hit the start at 0%. So this is the point where we first started, and this is the end point. So I'm going to start from here, and then by the end of my video, I'm going to go to 100%. So let's play that back, let it render. You can see it disappears from the start point. And if I do this with the end point, let me delete these, turn on the end. Oops, go in the beginning of my clip, turn on the end stopwatch, come all the way back and make it 0. Let's go back in the composition. You can see that it's undoing itself from the end. Though we left the start at 29, that's why half of the letter is not there. So turn this to 0 to get the whole thing back. Let's let it render. And you can see it's starting from the end and then moving towards the start. So this is the difference between the start and the end stopwatch. We also have a stopwatch for color, and that just means that in the beginning it's going to be white. And then if you move towards the end or at any point, you can change the color. Let's choose another vibrant color. Let's go for green. And now if I play this back, you can see it turns to green. So it's really nice. You could use it for, let's say, a Halloween video where the text is white and then it turns to a red. It's a fun thing to do. Then we have a diameter, which we saw that the diameter is the size of your brush tip. And if you change that, right now it's at 21. You can see 21 here. I'm going to turn this on, and then by the end of my video, I'm going to make it like 50. So it's going to get bigger as it disappears. You can see it gets bigger. Then we have the angle. Again, the angle is not going to be that great with a circular brush tip. So I'm going to turn this on and move in a few frames. You can see not much changes, but if we had one of those thin brushes, it would be nice to have. Turn that off. We have the hardness of our brush, so we can start with a hard round. And then at the end, we could make it kind of soften the edges. So go to like 0. Wait for a preview. And you can see it's sharp and then it turns softer as it goes. Alright, and then we have the roundness of our brush. You can also turn this on, and then by the end you can kind of slim the brush tip. Let's go for 30. So you saw it became thinner. Play this back. You can see that the brush tip changes. Let me zoom in. It's changing as the timeline continues. Let's go for spacing. We can also add a stopwatch for spacing. So first, it's the current spacing that we added in the brush panel. You can see it's 25, 25. Move in a few frames. We can make it just like this. 241. Play that back. You can see the spacing disappears. Let me move towards the text. Zoom out. All right. So you can see we added a few animations to our brush stroke. We also have one for channels. This is about the coloring. I usually leave mine on RGBA. Unless you want to do something special, you can also go on RGB. We'll talk about these in further lessons. And then if you want your brush stroke to disappear, you can use the opacity stopwatch. So in the beginning, it's at 100%. By the end of the video, it's 0. So you can see the brush stroke just ends and disappears as it goes on. You can also do the same thing with the flow, but because we added the spacing, it's not going to be much different. And these are just some really cool options that we have for the stroke options. If you open color, you can also add no, currently it's on the value. Let's turn that off. And that was the transformations that we have for the stroke. Let me delete all of these guys. Remove everything. Right. Let me close the brush 1 options. Sorry, the stroke options. And then below it, we have transform brush 1. We come out of that place. If you open transform brush 1, you're working with the brush stroke. So if I turn on position, these are just familiar things that is available for every layer. Let me move it here. You can see my text is moving around. You add a scale. Let me go in the beginning. You add a scale. You can see it becomes the size that you assign it to. You add rotation, it rotates as it goes. to wherever you're adding a keyframe. Let me play that. So you can see it's like moving, it's turning, it's becoming smaller. And then down here we have some compositing options. If you go and open this up, you can change the opacity of the effect. So let me go in the beginning, add a stopwatch, and then make the effect disappear by the end. So it's turning, it's becoming smaller, and it just fades away. Right, and then I'm going to just delete these guys. That was just everything related to the brush. Make sure you put the values back to where it was. Oops, 100%. And remove this. And just move the position to wherever you want. Because the stopwatch is not on, that means that I'm not animating. And we can turn the effect opacity to 100%. So that was everything related to the paint. Because this is underneath this video, the transform is the transform for the video. So it has nothing to do with your text. You can see if I remove the, if I scale it in or out, my text is just moving with it. But if I want to add a specific kind of effect for my text, I have to do it within the paint window. Just set this back to whatever it was. So because the paint was on this video, you can see we added that here. Whatever I do, my paint is just going to move along with my video because it's a part of the video right now. If I want to add a special effect, I would have to go in the paint panel below the effects. If I want to turn paint off completely, just hit on this FX icon and you can see it goes away. If you want to delete it completely, just go on Paint or Effect and hit Backspace once. And now we only have the standard transform option for this thing. Alright, so let me close this and make a new layer. Layer new. And I'm just going to see what kind of thing I can add. Let's go for a null object. Actually, we're going to learn null objects later. For now, I'm just going to continue with a new layer. You can add certain adjustments to it. We already made a solid layer. It's the white one below. And see what else we could add. Guess we wouldn't need anything. So that was the paintbrush tool within the After Effects toolbar. I'm going to quickly go over the erase tool as well. It just erases parts of your video. So I'm in the video layer. Again, if you close it, double tap on that layer. If I get the eraser tool, again, you have the option to change the opacity of it and all of that. And I can just simply delete that layer. You can see, because my composition color is black, it's going to turn into black. Undo that. Alright, so that's the eraser tool. You're just erasing parts of the video. And down here, if you don't want to erase parts of the video, we have layer, source, and paint. You can change it to paint only. So if I drew something with the paintbrush, just something like this, I'll go on the eraser and make sure you change it to paint only. So that way I'm only changing the the paint stroke and not my video. If I want to erase my video, just go to layer, source, and paint. So it deletes, removes everything. If you go to last stroke, it's just going to remove any last erase action that you did. So it's just erasing the erased parts and bringing back my video. Like so. And similar to the paint brush, we have the same thing for the eraser. So each of these have the path, and then we have the stroke options. It's the exact same thing, except obviously the brush tool adds strokes to it and the eraser removes strokes to it. removes strokes from it. So that's the only difference, but the rest is the same. We have the start and diameter and all of that. You can change the diameter here if you want a large erase action. You can see I made it larger. And we have the same channels that we did. This is the only thing that's different. And you get to change the options down here. You don't really get to change your brush thing because you won't need any of these guys to erase. Let's go to paint. And yeah. So just some regular things. You can also use, if you go on paint only, you can go according to your brush duration. So if your brush duration was set on single frame, you can also change this. So if I'm erasing something in a single frame, let's actually demonstrate that. I'm going to delete paint from this. Turn off the visibility for a second. Go to, and also get out of this layer. I'm on the white solid layer, white solid 1, double click. If I add a paint stroke, let me make this black so we can see it, and set it on single frame and draw something like this. If I move another frame, so I can show you the after, and make another stroke the opposite way. So I have this on the first frame, this on the second frame. And again, I'm moving forward by holding down Control and pressing the right arrow key to move forward, and the back arrow key to go backwards, which is actually the right arrow key for moving forward, the left arrow key for moving backward. So if I just want to erase this frame without touching this guy, I have to go on my eraser tool first and go to single frame, then set it on paint only. So that way I'm only erasing the paint for this particular frame and I'm not touching the white solid before. So you can see in the next frame, the stroke is still there and it looks normal. If I set it to constant, let me hit Ctrl Z to get that back. If I set this to constant and still on paint only, I'm going to, let me do like a scribble. If I move forward, you can see that on the second frame, it's also erased in those parts that I use the eraser tool. Go back, Ctrl Z. If I set it to layer source and paint, I'm just erasing the white solid 1 and the stroke. So move forward in frame, you can see that it's still there no matter which frame I go to. If I change it to, let's hit Ctrl Z first. If I change it to, I actually deleted my thing. Let me do that again. If I change it to the other option that we had, which is last stroke only. Let me first make an erased option, like here. If I go to last stroke only, I'm only going to be erasing the parts that I erased. So I'm not erasing the brush stroke. You can see it's still there. And if I go to paint only, you can also set the option. So if I go to right on and then hit layer source in paint, let me delete or just move a few frames forward. I'm deleting these parts, but I'm also doing it in an animation way. So you can see it's deleting and the animation is following my stroke. It looks really nice. And yeah, so that was how you use the eraser tool and the brush tool. They're definitely really helpful. In the future lessons, we're going to see how we can use them for more complex projects and how we can make our videos look cooler by using these tools. So I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I will see you guys in the next one.